In the mid-7th century BCE, the neo-Assyrian Empire ruled the largest area the world had ever seen at that time. This vast empire was led by a cunning military leader named Ashurbanipal, who was revered by his people, yet ruthless in dealing with enemies. But behind the gruff and brutal exterior, is there something different? Perhaps within the soul of Ashurbanipal, there are secrets, desires, and dreams that we have never known. Let's delve into the life and philosophy of this king, to uncover the complexity and multidimensionality behind the brutal facade of one of the most significant figures in Assyrian history. In the grandeur of Nineveh's mighty palaces, around 685 BCE, a new soul emerged within the Assyrian royal family, Ashurbanipal. Born into the light of a powerful dynasty, the young boy was destined for a life of privilege, enveloped in the grace and tranquility of courtly ceremonies. But the past always loomed like a threatening shadow, and when Ashurbanipal was merely 4 years old, he faced danger from within the sturdy walls of Nineveh. The source of this threat stemmed from a time prior, when the Elamites abducted Ashurbanipal's uncle, Ashur-nadin Shumi, and executed him. This loss not only grieved Ashurbanipal's grandfather, Sennacherib, but also sparked a succession crisis. Tradition dictated that the eldest son of the king would inherit the throne, yet Sennacherib decided to challenge this rule. Instead of selecting his eldest son, Artamulisu, he favored Esarhaddon, Ashurbanipal's father, as the new crown prince. This choice bred dissent and resentment within the royal family. Tensions escalated, and eventually, Sennacherib was compelled to send Esarhaddon and his family away from Nineveh. In 681 BCE, Artamulisu and his accomplices carried out a brutal assassination, killing Sennacherib while he prayed at the temple in Nineveh. News of the demise of this tyrannical king spread far and wide, sowing fear and unrest among the populace. Esarhaddon, in shock and desperation, faced a crucial decision: to stay and protect his household, or to venture forth in pursuit of justice and vengeance for his father. History records Esarhaddon's resolve. He rallied the most loyal and plunged into a fierce civil war. Esarhaddon emerged victorious after 6 bloody weeks. Ashurbanipal's uncles were forced to flee northward to Urartu and vanish from sight. And with the conclusion of the conflict, the young lad Ashurbanipal, still grappling with many unanswered questions, returned to Nineveh with his family. With time, life resumed its normal orbit in Nineveh. Within the towering walls of the palace, young Ashurbanipal grew amidst echoes of laughter and petty sibling squabbles. Around him were 3 older brothers, 1 sister, and at least 10 younger siblings. Although Sin-nadin-apli was the eldest brother, and Shamash-metu-ubalit the third, Ashurbanipal still held deep affection and admiration for his elder brother, Shamash-shumukin. While the king continued to lead the Assyrian army in ceaseless wars, Esarhaddon still found time to nurture and care for his children. He devised plans for each of them, and Ashurbanipal's plan was to become a priest. Believing that a priest should have profound knowledge of Akkadian and Sumerian, Esarhaddon appointed Balassi, one of the finest scribes in the palace, as Ashurbanipal's private tutor. In a short time, Ashurbanipal demonstrated his extraordinary abilities. He quickly mastered both reading and writing, and became renowned for his prowess in solving complex mathematical problems. Balassi, like a master jeweler, had found and polished a precious gem he had discovered. When Ashurbanipal turned 11, his life was once again shaken by another family tragedy. This time it was his eldest brother, Sin-nadin-apli, who unexpectedly passed away. Once again, a horrifying coincidence unfolded. Just as Ashurbanipal's grandfather, Sennacherib, had lost his eldest son and heir, Ashurbanipal's father also faced an inevitable loss. After enduring the pain, Esarhaddon had to make a crucial decision regarding the successor to the throne. He knew that Ashurbanipal was a promising candidate, with Balassi continually reporting on the boy's progress. However, Esarhaddon couldn't overlook Shamash-shumukin, his eldest surviving son. While Esarhaddon pondered over whom to appoint as the new crown prince, his health gradually deteriorated. The illness had haunted him throughout his adult life, becoming more burdensome with each passing day. No one could alleviate his suffering. The king endured anguish, even refusing to eat bitterly and painfully. He lived in uncertainty, fearing the wrath of the gods, and constantly questioning whether he had done something wrong. Esarhaddon's declining health compelled him to make a decision about selecting a successor as soon as possible. He knew that if he didn't entrust the throne to Shamash-Shum-Ukin, his tragic history might repeat itself. Therefore, he conceived a daring idea. Both sons would become kings. Ashurbanipal would rule Assyria, while Shamash-Shum-Ukin would reign over Babylonia. Shamash-Metu-Ubalit, Ashurbanipal's third eldest brother, had withdrawn from the succession race due to his frail health. However, another significant issue arose with this plan. Ashurbanipal and Shamash-Shum-Ukin could never stand on equal footing. The ruler of Assyria, by definition, would also rule Babylonia. Both brothers understood this, and a dilemma emerged. Before embarking on his journey to Egypt, Esarhaddon entrusted the rule of the empire to his sons, then unexpectedly passed away at the age of 44. Despite his illness, he still had the strength to complete the long journey to Egypt. When Ashurbanipal received news of his father's death, he experienced a profound shock that left him grieving, yet filled with fear. Despite Ashurbanipal's training to assume the role of the ruler of the world's greatest empire in the future, he was only 16 years old. A few months later, Shamash-Shum-Ukin ascended the throne of Babylon. Upon ascending the throne, Ashurbanipal found himself burdened with heavy administrative responsibilities. While Ashurbanipal was focused on building offices in the capital, Egyptian pharaoh Taharka saw an opportunity to liberate Egypt from Assyrian rule. He led an army to attack and disperse Assyrian military garrisons in the city of Memphis, and news of this reached Ashurbanipal. Taharka's action, aimed at reclaiming independence from Assyria, occurred just as Ashurbanipal was consolidating his power, making it a savvy move. Without Ashurbanipal's firm grasp of warfare, he would have lost Egypt. Ashurbanipal commanded an army to reconquer Egypt and called for support from allies in the Levant. Even Cyprus joined in support by providing troops and equipment, along with ships, to aid Assyria's efforts. The battle at the city of Karbanitu ended in victory for Ashurbanipal's army and its allies, as Taharka was driven southward, and Egypt returned under Assyrian control. Taharka passed away after a few years in exile, but his animosity against Assyria was inherited by his son, Tanatamun. This young pharaoh continued the uprising against Assyria. Upon hearing the news, Ashurbanipal summoned forces to counteract. Tanatamun had to flee southward and remained there until his death. After successive uprisings in Egypt, Ashurbanipal appointed Psamtik as pharaoh. Psamtik had served in the Assyrian court under Esarhaddon, so Ashurbanipal was familiar with him. He equipped Psamtik with Assyria's established military units before he returned to his homeland. However, Ashurbanipal underestimated Psamtik's ambitions. In the ensuing years, as Ashurbanipal focused on quelling uprisings in the Levant, Anatolia, and Urartu, Egypt gradually slipped from his control. Psamtik, now a puppet of Assyria, grew more confident, and while still respecting Ashurbanipal, sought complete control over Egypt. Psamtik attempted to achieve this peacefully, avoiding harm to Ashurbanipal and forging new alliances while warning him of the consequences. However, the relationship between Egypt and Assyria maintained a friendly sentiment. Nevertheless, Ashurbanipal had to let go of Egypt to deal with a greater threat from the east. Elamite King Tumen had spent years planning to destroy Assyria. In 653 BCE, Tumen decided to attack Assyria in hopes of defeating it. However, Tumen's army was pushed back by the Assyrian forces, despite his lofty ambitions. The Elamite invasion was thwarted by the Assyrian forces, and Tumen had to retreat in disarray. In the chaos of the battle, the Elamites fled to the banks of the Ulai River, where they faced a difficult choice: fight or commit suicide. However, the Assyrians left little opportunity for them, decapitating many and pushing the rest into the river. In the chaos, King Tumen and his son were captured and thrown into the water as they attempted to escape. To commemorate the victory over Elam, an Assyrian soldier severed Tumen's head and brought it as a trophy to Nineveh to Ashurbanipal. The 32-year-old Assyrian king was proud of this victory. He impaled Tumen's head on a tree in his garden and celebrated with his wife, Libbali Sharat. However, it was only a brief respite as his worst nightmare became a reality. Shamash-shum-ukin had been king of Babylon for 16 years. Shamash-shum-ukin, the ruler of Babylon, faced numerous challenges in managing his army to defend his city. He often had to endure the interference of his brother, Ashurbanipal, in matters affecting Babylon's status, such as the construction of Esagila, the important temple, and the Ziggurat Edamin-Anki, the magnificent architectural structure. These tasks typically fell under the jurisdiction of the Babylonian king. Although Shamash-shum-ukin never truly accepted his father's decision to support Ashurbanipal as the king of Assyria, he certainly had to come to terms with it after 16 years under Ashurbanipal's rule. However, Shamash-shum-ukin's inability to play a larger role in governing Babylon made it intolerable for him to continue. Shamash-shum-ukin, an Assyrian by origin, actively assimilated into Babylonian culture. He participated in rituals and festivals like any local Babylonian king. His support in southern Mesopotamia was unquestionable. However, Shamash-shum-ukin realized that local support alone was not enough to free Babylon from Assyrian control. Therefore, he began seeking support from allies whom Assyria regarded with disdain, such as Elam. News of Shamash-shum-ukin's actions reached Ashurbanipal, surely leaving him feeling deeply betrayed. Shamash-shum-ukin was not only Ashurbanipal's brother, but also a reliable ally. All of Ashurbanipal's efforts to quell Shamash-shum-ukin's rebellion were unsuccessful. Nothing could prevent the conflict between the two brothers, except for the intervention of the gods. Finally, in late 652 BCE, the war between the two brothers erupted. In the first 2 years, they fought across Babylonia, from cities in the north to Sealand in the south. Both achieved victories, leading to chaotic conditions. Despite receiving military support from foreign allies, Shamash-shum-ukin gradually lost support. Ashurbanipal gained control of the south, and by mid-650 BCE, he had besieged Babylon. He cut off all food, water, and military aid supplies to Babylon. Enduring 2 years of blockade, Babylon suffered hardships, famine, and disease. When Babylon finally surrendered, the Assyrian army stormed the city, where Shamash-shum-ukin seemed to have perished in a fire, although the exact timing is unclear. The surviving inhabitants of Babylon were slaughtered by the Assyrian soldiers. The civil war against Babylon caused much loss for 37-year-old Ashurbanipal. Perhaps he could have taken different actions to maintain a more harmonious relationship with his brother, Shamash-shum-ukin, after all his father's efforts, Esarhaddon, to rebuild Babylon. On one hand, Ashurbanipal failed to value Shamash-shum-ukin as highly as his father did, which may have led to his brother's rebellion. However, on the other hand, it's possible that Shamash-shum-ukin had been planning the uprising since he became king of Babylon. After all of his father Esarhaddon's efforts to rebuild Babylon, Ashurbanipal had now reduced it to rubble. As the Babylonian revenge came to an end, Ashurbanipal decided to shift his focus to Elam. He not only wanted to punish Elam, but also to annihilate them completely for supporting Babylon's betrayal of Assyria. Ashurbanipal destroyed Elam's defenses and marched straight to their capital Susa, devastating it as Sennacherib had done to Babylon. After the destruction of Elam, Ashurbanipal decided not to appoint any more puppet kings in Elam and did not attempt to incorporate this region into his empire. Instead, he left Elam defenseless, a decision that would later prove to be a grave mistake. The Medes would go on to rebuild the cities of Elam, and thereby play a significant role in contributing to the downfall of the Assyrian Empire. In his empire's twilight years, Ashurbanipal dedicated his time and mind to scholarly endeavors. He established the Royal Library of Ashurbanipal, the first highly organized library in the ancient world, sometimes known as the Library of Nineveh. He commissioned hundreds of scribes to seek out and copy texts from all over the world to add to his library. Ashurbanipal himself was a passionate reader, and many tablets still bear the royal seal, indicating that he personally read or consulted them. The royal library was buried in the Battle of Nineveh in 612 BCE, but later discovered and collected by the British archaeologist Austen Henry Layard in 1849. Among the important texts found in the library is the Epic of Gilgamesh, which includes a version of the Great Flood story predating the Bible. Today, the Epic of Gilgamesh is considered a great literary work and is regarded as one of the oldest surviving literary works in the world. In 631 BCE, after 38 years of reign, Ashurbanipal died under unclear circumstances at the age of 54. A civil war broke out between his two sons, weakening the empire from within and paving the way for the rise of a new Babylon under the leadership of Nabopolassar. Babylon allied with other peoples such as the Medes, Persians, Chaldeans, Cimmerians, and Scythians to resist Assyria. Assyria ultimately suffered a heavy defeat in the Siege of Haran in 609 BCE. The neo-Assyrian Empire finally collapsed, and its territory was divided between the Medes and Babylon. Thus, the empire that Ashurbanipal had brought to its zenith, and through which he made profound contributions to the world of scholarship and literature, was conquered only about 20 years after his death. Through both his brutality and great intellect, Ashurbanipal seized control of the greatest empire the world had ever seen. He also built the largest surviving collection of ancient knowledge to date. What do you think of the most cruel king of Assyria, Ashurbanipal? Do you consider him a skilled leader? Leave your comments below and don't forget to subscribe to continue the journey of exploring ancient history with us. Thank you for your attention and listening.